Good morning, everybody. My name's Emery, Managing Director at Momentum Software Solutions, and welcome to our MYOB Acumatica and EXO Customer Connect event for November 24. Looking forward to taking you through quite a bit of content today, all things MYOB Acumatica and MYOB EXO. So, before we get into the agenda, just a couple of quick reminders. I'm sure you know these, but it's always useful to repeat them. So please make sure your microphone is on mute unless you're speaking. It just helps reduce any background noise coming through the presentations. And feel free to use the chat box or raise your hand just using the icons at the top of the screen if you do have any questions or feedback. The other thing is all of our Customer Connect sessions are recorded, and you'll be sent a recording once Morgan has had a chance to curate it. So our agenda today, we've got a lot of content to cover. We have a 2-hour session with a 10-minute break, and I'll be giving you a quick update on Momentum and our journey over the last 6 or 12 months. And then we're really jumping into product. So we have some really fantastic guest speakers attending from MYOB, Jean Fulop and Bruce Minty, and they'll be talking about particular aspects of the Acumatica platform, some particular aspects around performance upgrades and security. There have been a number of ATO-led changes to login and security, so there'll certainly be some information about that, including the reasons for it needing to be done. Then we have Peter Jeffrey from our Momentum team taking us through the spring release highlights. So the spring release is available to new customers who signed up from spring, but existing customers will start receiving those upgrades early next year. So it's a preview into the upcoming features of that release, which would have been covered in the MYOB Discover event recently, but we'll be delving into a little bit more detail. Then we're moving on to MYOB EXO, what's happening with the EXO product from recent upgrades and new features, as well as migration options for you. Then we have our break. Then we're kicking off the second section with a user group discussion, which is really intended to be an interactive chat amongst ourselves. And we'll have some leading questions that you might want to consider when we come back and have our user group discussion. Then we're doing an online training session with Pankaj, one of our consulting team, who'll be taking you through some tips and tricks within MYOB Acumatica that you can take away and use in your business right away. It's covering a number of different areas. And then we thought it would be topical because we often preview new features, but the customers might not see them for some months as the upgrade windows progress. Is we're actually going to circle back to the 2023 major release and delve into those, because those are features that just about all of the customers on this session have access to right now, but might not be using. So we thought we would circle back to those and highlight how you can use them in your business. That already, if you've been upgraded, and almost everybody has, you'll already have access to those features. And then last but not least, we have Danielle Byrne from ELMO HR Software, who's presenting on the ELMO solution and where it might play a role in your business. So just a quick update on Momentum's journey. For those who have known us for a long time, we started business on the Sunshine Coast with a team of about 3 or 4 people about 15, 16 years ago. And we've gradually expanded. And now, as you can see from the map, we're pretty much a national organisation. We have customers and consultants in every one of the locations you see. The bigger part of our team is still Southeast Queensland, Sydney and Adelaide, but consultants throughout the length and breadth of Australia. So we've really on a fantastic journey to a national organisation. And then a few highlights over the last 12 months. So yeah, we have expanded into New South Wales, Victoria, South Australia and Western Australia. Our total client base continues to grow. We have over 275 businesses using the ERP products that we sell and implement and support. In the past 12 months, we've completed, well, I think that's a conservative number, but well over 40 ERP implementations. I think we have 60 implementations in progress right now. So we're a very busy company implementing and supporting the different ERP products that we do, most predominantly MYOB Acumatica. We continue to grow our team as our business grows and our client base grows. So we now have over 30 dedicated consultants across implementations, support, development and integration. Celebrated a 16-year milestone of Momentum's existence. So we're certainly have some great longevity as a business and also with our customers. Some of our customers are still with us today that we started with many years ago, and did win a number of awards throughout the year, including the MYOB Construction Partner of the Year, which was the second year running that we were successful with that award. So next on the agenda, we have an MYOB Acumatica product update. So I'll pause hearing from me and I'll introduce Bruce, Minty and Jean Fulop from the MYOB team. Thanks, Bruce and Jean.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jean Fulop, Senior Product Manager. I work closely with the MYOB Acumatica Platform Infrastructure team. And today I will provide an update on platform performance and upgrades management changes. Before we step into that, I just wanted to provide a little bit of context. So we have a performance team who are focusing on reviewing customer sites where there are known impacts on performance, such as slow screen load times, delays in processing transactions, and then their overall lagging performance. So the purpose of this team is to understand the root cause and how we can resolve the impacts to you, our customers. And as an outcome of this, we have identified several common trends affecting performance. And so this is what I'd like to share with you today, which does include misconfiguration, potentially inefficient customizations and integrations, and also challenges that we're seeing with some of the third-party providers. We are providing a best practices performance guidelines, which contains information on optimal configuration and practices. And so this has actually been published in the knowledge base. And as we learn more, this document will continue to evolve. Next slide, please. So we have identified several areas, as I mentioned before, that have a performance impact. I will touch on these briefly. There is more, but I really wanted to touch on the key areas that we're seeing. So for the first one, we're seeing with managing tenants and snapshots. For those of you who may not be familiar with this, if you think of a tenant as like a separate workspace within our MYOB Acumatica system, and each tenant has its own companies or departments with its own unique data and settings. So what is required is to periodically review your list of tenants and delete any that are no longer in use, because this helps reduce the load on the system and improve the overall performance. We also have snapshots. So snapshots is a backup of that tenant's data and its settings at a specific point in time, which you can restore if needed. So regularly deleting these unnecessary tenants and snapshots is really crucial to freeing up the resources and maintaining system performance. So this practice helps reducing the load on the system and ensures that only relevant data is retained. The next one is generic inquiries. So a couple of things I wanted to touch on is avoid modifying primary lists. So what I mean by that is we have, for example, sales orders or invoices, is to create a copy of that inquiry for any changes. And this preserves the primary function of quickly locating documents for that original primary list. And it also avoids adding, avoid adding extra fields solely if it's just for reporting purposes. We've also got adding filters, so implementing parameter-driven filters to reduce the result set. So, for example, creating a shared filter for sales orders as the default filter can streamline that inquiry process. So by limiting the data to and only relevant entries, so this improves our whole performance and usability. I will just briefly touch on create, GIs. So we have seen that some of the setup with regards to how GIs or generic inquiries have been configured, with how particular joins are being used. This is all in a documentation and would love to share this with you. Also with reducing the use of quick search. So the quick search is a way of, it provides all the information in the table. So minimizing the number of fields enabled for that quick search, because if you've got too many fields in that quick search, what you'll find is it can slow down the inefficiencies when the query is running, and then you'll see a slowdown in performance. So it's really recommended, if you're going to use that quick research, is to limit the search fields and column specific searches where possible. One tip that I'd like to add is to look at the default filters to frequently use screens. So adding a basic default filter to screens, as I mentioned before, sales orders can improve the performance by reducing the amount of data that actually loads into that table. Managing customizations, so having multiple versions of customizations in a separate tenants can also lead to inconsistent behavior and performance issues. So different versions of customizations active on different tenants can actually cause conflicts. So making sure that your optimize, or as I mentioned before, it can result in unpredictable effects, and then including errors and performance decreases. So optimizing performance is you can look to maintain those customizations on a single tenant, ideally tenant 3, that's a recommendation. Moving to API integration, so ensuring that there's sufficient error checking that is built into that API is vital. So this actually helps handle issues such as incorrect credentials, insufficient permissions, or even invalid data that's been sent as a request. Then I also want to mention site restarts. We schedule site restarts during off-peak hours, and it's between 1 and 3 a.m. AST, or within New Zealand, it's 3 to 5 a.m. And the reason why we do this is that ensures the continuation of the smooth operation and avoids any disruption. So the regular restarts help maintain any system performance and any potential issues that may arise. Another area is the automation schedules. So we have found that there are issues with how some of those automation schedules are being set. For example, there may have been no end date that's been defined, so that actually consumes excessive resources while it's running. So needing to make sure and checking that there's end dates assigned, and then also adjusting the frequency of when those automation schedules are run at optimal levels. For example, you may have it set to run every 10 minutes. Ideally, you should look to change that perhaps to 30 minutes so that it can actually reduce the load on the system resources. Next slide, please. The other area that we're focusing on is hosting tiers. And so the primary goal of implementing hosting tiers is to ensure that all our customers are hosted in a manner that meets their usage requirements. So previously our approach was a one-size-fits-all model, and all customers were provided with the same level of resources regardless of their size and complexity. However, we have recognised that there is a need for a change in this approach, and the introduction of the hosting tiers will allow us to better accommodate the specific needs for each of our customers' businesses. There is a graphical representation down the bottom, and what we're actually seeing is that currently 92% of our sites are covered by the standard and medium hosting tiers. So we've been doing some assessment and an analysis work on where our customers fall. You'll see to the top there are actually transaction variables. Now these transaction variables actually determine where the sites will sit. For example, I just briefly touch on standard. You'll see if the number of active users within the system is 10, monthly commercial transaction volumes. That is based on accounts payable and accounts receivable. And what it looks at is the highest document that's been created for those commercial transactions. The next one is the total volume, and then we're also looking at API calls. There is further information that we can provide which goes into more detail. So the assessment process for determining the appropriate hosting levels for our customers really involves, as I mentioned, both the transaction volumes and complexity factors. So for the transaction volumes, as I mentioned before, we take into consideration both customer and supplier transactions. And this is done by we're measuring the level of business activity and the volume of transactions processed. When it comes to complexity, several factors are considered, and that is includes transaction volumes, the number of third-party or ISV integrations, customizations, and any changes to existing workflows. So we are considering large and extra large tiers, and they include, which is not included in the monthly subscription, but these tiers are designed to cater for those sites with a high usage requirements, and will be billed on a monthly basis independent of the number of users. So we're still working through that. So the extra large tier, and this tier has an indicative subscription but will be priced on application, and including services for architectural consulting. So this actually ensures that customers with extensive needs, we are providing the necessary tailored solution and expert guidance to you. Next slide, please. Wanted to call out with the upgrade management. I recognise that this is a fairly hot topic, and we're currently looking at a discovery piece around how do we look to better manage the upgrades. A couple of things that we're looking to do is extending the lockdown period for a window to 90 days. Normally it's 30 days, and then also changing the sandbox testing time to 45 days, which means that you're able to do the thorough testing that you need to do, and also it ensures that you have a smoother upgrade process, and it minimises the whole disruption if something goes wrong. The other thing that we are looking at is what are the short-term wins that which has low impact, which we can look to roll out, and we will be providing more detail on that, to what that will be. I'll now pass you over to Bruce Minty, who will talk to security. Thanks, Bruce.
Thank you, Jean. Thank you. So I'll just give you a bit of an update as to what's happening in the world of multi-factor authentication and some of the changes that have been rolled out in recent times. So for those that aren't using multi-factor authentication, it's certainly something that we're looking to roll out for all users in the future. There's been no determined date yet on exactly when that will be, but we are providing customers with plenty of help along the way in getting them onboarded into multi-factor authentication. But for background, there was a significant push which was instigated by the Australian Taxation Office. So they have what they regard as a DSP, a Digital Service Providers Operational Security Framework, which is a governing framework over the protection of sensitive information, as it were. So in effect, what that means is that it requires all users of applications such as MYOB Acumatica that we provide, all users, end users, with access to their own personal identifiable information or other users' personal identifiable information. And in order to do so, then apply multi-factor authentication to those particular users. So accessing the system via multi-factor authentication as a priority for those users that are accessing PII. So the Taxation Office we've been engaging with for a period of time now, and they've been assisting us in being able to provide clarity on that framework, and then also the individual components over and above multi-factor authentication, which are a 24-hour Remember Me feature. So what that is a feature whereby if I'm using multi-factor authentication, every 24-hour period, the system will challenge that authentication and then request my authentication token. And that token obviously can come from your Authenticator app on your mobile phone. It can come via your SMS, via an SMS message to your phone, but also can come via email as well. So that's part of the framework, as well as we'll be looking to introduce down the track a 30-minute inactivity timeout feature, which is for all users that are using multi-factor authentication, will automatically time out their session of MYOB Acumatica after that 30-minute time frame has elapsed. And these are all features, these are all requirements to maintain our compliance status, our current compliance status with the ATO. And this is not just our product, this is every cloud-based product in the market, all applying multi-factor authentication rulings across their applications. So it is important that we keep progressing with this initiative. And, so our priority cohorts that was identified at that clarification point with the ATO is that, again, as I mentioned, those using PII or accessing other clients' PII narrows that priority cohort down to those payroll admin users and also employee self-service users that we'd like to get using multi-factor authentication as soon as possible. So to achieve that outcome, we commenced a communication plan back in July right through to September. Those here today would have noticed some communications in the form of emails and also in-product messaging to get those priority cohorts using multi-factor authentication. We've been also at the same time monitoring support cases, and we've also identified a number of user experience issues that are actually impacting users' journey through that multi-factor authentication process. And so it was identified there's a couple of friction points and minor issues that are reducing the completions in the activation of multi-factor authentication for certain users. So that ultimately leads to a lower uptake, and we understand that, and we are aware of the impact those issues are having on our customers. And so what we want to do is start to alleviate those friction points, and work's underway to understand what can be fixed quickly versus what needs to be planned and delivered in a subsequent release, as it were. And we're working closely with the ATO to keep them updated on our progress to date on how that's all progressing. But it's certainly a significant project. And as I mentioned, payroll admin users are a priority cohort we're targeting at this point in time. We've got about 20% uptake. We want to hit a little bit more in the lead up to our assessment with the assessment period with the ATO, which is around about December. But we've got a long way to go, so it's imperative that we keep that communication plan going. So if we've got any payroll admins and ESS users here today, please go ahead and commence the onboarding activation of your multi-factor authentication. So that's what's transpired and the rationale behind that. But what also backs that up is that we want to provide a secure solution for all our customers, regardless of the type of user. So there is a plan underway to enforce all users in due course, but we want to be pragmatic about that, and we want to make sure that we're ironing out those UX issues before we reach out to those other cohorts. So Recently, you would have noticed a minor change that happened on the 1st of October. So for those not using multi-factor authentication yet, there were no changes in your user experience. But for those that are already using MFA, they would have noticed that they're now being prompted at least once every 24 hours. I mentioned before that 24-hour Remember Me feature. So that would be the only change that's occurred in recent times. But what that means is that what we're doing here is overcoming what was regarded by the ATO as an overly relaxed trust period, because previously under what's known as adaptive MFA, it would only prompt user authentication if it deemed that there was a significant assigned risk factor, which meant that if I'm now logging in from another IP address or another computer, it would then consider that a heightened risk factor, and then at that point in time would push for re-authentication. And so that's the type of situation that the ATO is looking to overcome. But overall, what does it mean? It means a more secure system for all users. But obviously, with that, we know it does result in more log-in events for users. But obviously, no more than what they would have previously if they were using standard in-app credentials via that green button that we used to use if you are previously using it, now using multi-factor. But on that, our long-term strategy, as I mentioned earlier, was about full enforcement, which is on the way. So, again, our first priority is payroll admins and ESS users. But the longer term, we want to have 100% of our customers using it. We do acknowledge that we need to limit undue impact on our customers. So it's critical that we strike that balance between enabling, good data and user security protocols that are intuitive and seamless and non-disruptive to users when working within MYOB Acumatica. And that, whilst that I mentioned the ATO is obviously an Australian governing body, we also want to make these changes across into New Zealand as well. So these changes in due course will affect our New Zealand customers. The initial driver is for ATO compliance and a more secure system, and that reflects industry best practice and good data governance. But we're also implementing these changes through both regions, Australia and New Zealand as well. So that's where we're at with an update on multi-factor authentication. Look, if you need more help and guidance on setting up multi-factor authentication, just go to myob.com/au/support. Now, support portal, there's plenty of help there on how to set up multi-factor authentication and some troubleshooting tips there to guide you through any friction points in that activation process as well. And that's all I've got. Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce and Jean. So before I introduce Peter, I guess just a couple of recaps on the content that Bruce and Jean presented. From a performance perspective, MYOB Acumatica is a high-performing product, and only a tiny number of customers have performance issues, and there's benchmarking being done. Momentum are part of a partner advisory group working with MYOB in cases where there might be performance issues, and a number of those things that Jean mentioned could be managed by customers, but are often managed by the partner. So if you do feel that your site is having any performance issues, that the first thing you should do is just contact our support team, and we will triage that for you and work it through. And as Bruce mentioned, from a login multi-factor authentication perspective, that's just something that needs to happen in any cloud software, and vendors of all kinds doing the same thing as what MYOB are doing. I'd probably add that single sign-on is available with MYOB Acumatica, so you are able to link your user logins to your Microsoft Azure profile and have a single sign-on into the application. So if you do want to do that, then contact us and we can help you with that process. So next up is Peter Jeffrey, and Peter's going to be taking us through some of the highlights from the spring release. So spring release will start to roll out early next year I think February are the first group of customers that would receive that release. So this will give you a great preview into all the different improvements and new features coming along in the spring release. So over to you, Peter.
Thanks, Al, and good morning, everyone. So I'm just going to go through each area within MYOB Acumatica and just highlight 2, possibly 3, either new features or enhancements that are going to make a significant difference to your current operations. So as far as platforms concerned, Jean has already been talking about generic inquiries, and they're a fabulous tool to surface information from different parts of the system to give you good data views. But the issue with them at the moment is they're only flat. So this enhancement that's coming along allows you to use an existing GI as a data source for another GI, which means you can have embedded and layered queries summarizing data and drill throughs, and it adds a lot more visualization options and flexibility into the way that you can consume information. Equally with business events, another fantastic feature that's in the software to be able to trigger processes and workflows based on certain conditions. And that's being enhanced to add more flexibility as to what those triggers are going to be. So having formulas and more conditional formatting around logic and comparison and which workflow goes this way, which workflow goes that way under certain conditions. So again, a lot more efficiency to be able to improve system automation from within the platform. Next slide, please. Now, in the finance, these 2 in finance, they are both associated with being able to reverse cash transactions. So where you've sold something and you need to do a cash return. In the first one on the left, being able to generate a cash return document immediately rather than the current process, which is a bit disjointed, having to do certain parts of those transactions separately. They've streamlined those and put them all together in a streamlined process. And equally, where you're generating a credit memo for a cash transaction where you've got discounts or terms on the original invoice, being able to automatically apply those terms and discounts to the credit memo. And again, currently that's a bit sort of a manual process. So streamlining that ensures a lot more accuracy in the financial information that's being processed. Next one, please. Manufacturing. Well, as it happens, Bruce Minty is the MYOB Acumatica product manager for manufacturing. So I'm going to ask Bruce to step in and cover this one so you can hear it directly from the horse's mouth. Over to you, Bruce.
Yeah, not a problem. Thank you, Peter. Yeah, so look, there's been a number of changes within MRP in particular. I'll just step through just a couple of them. What you'll notice is that in 24R1, MRP will actually be renamed inventory planning. So don't get confused when you take on 24R, the spring release, 24R1 release. You'll notice that MRP, the menu options no longer exist, but they've been replaced with inventory planning. So and the justification for that is that we're actually making inventory planning available to wholesale distribution customers as well. Making it sort of more widely available to our customer base. That's just one piece of the puzzle, but there's also some enhancements around, kit planning, for instance. So previously, MRP didn't consider kit components until there was a kit assembly created due to MRP not blowing down the demand using the kit specification. So it didn't refer to this kit specification at all. So if a kit existed on a sales order line, the planning user had no visibility of the component requirements needed to assemble that kit for that sales order. And so now in that enhanced inventory planning process, be it the previous MRP process, it now blows down demand through that kit specification to calculate the planned demand values on those particular stock components that are required to assemble that kit. So that obviously addresses a significant shortfall as well. You can make another point there is around making a warehouse inactive. So you can obviously reduce the planning time that the inventory planning module has to run and expedite that process a bit better. You can exclude return orders, and there's also been another one there which I think is really, really important, is around a new planning horizon. So customers with large amounts of supply and demand data didn't have the ability to shorten their planning horizon, meaning that you'd have to run MRP in full, and that often resulted in a really long MRP process to run and conclude. So there's a new time fence feature, which means you can actually introduce a new time fence, as it were, within the planning definitions there that results in a much shorter optimized MRP run, or an inventory planning run, I should say. It means that you can set that horizon to only consider demand requirements for the next, say, 2 weeks, for instance, without having to run it in perpetuity, or in its entirety, I should say. And then, running a full regeneration process, and that can certainly take a lot longer. So there's some efficiency gains there as well. The other one there, which is on the other side of the screen, which is about reporting operations out of sequence. That's an interesting one. For some time now, Acumatica have been up. Well, there's automation that's just inherent and built within the system, which effectively closes off operations in a production order if the last operation has been complete. So if you go and do a move transaction on operation 30, and operation 10 and 20 haven't yet been completed, inherently it just automatically finalizes these operations and closes your production order. Now, for whatever reason, obviously, there's obviously a need for customers to have more flexibility around that. So you've now got the choice to cater for more real life scenarios where you may want to do the last operation first, for instance, keep the prior operations open because you want someone to actually manually perform a move transaction or a production feedback against those operations to trap your actual times against your planned times as well, and get those variances. So there's a new flag in the system that allows you to switch off that automatic process, as it were, and then revert back to an earlier state where you can then manage each of those operations individually out of sequence. So that just gives you a bit of an update. I hope that helps.
Thanks, Bruce. Construction, there's a few things coming through here. So firstly, when you generate your pro forma invoice for your progress claim, being able to make adjustments and amendments to that and have those amendments follow through to the actual AP document for the progress claim has been streamlined to make those claims easier and more accurate. And equally on the cost transactions, where you're costing transactions into your projects, having those correctly linked to the AP documents so that the everything is correctly accounted for. You know what the source documents were for those cost transactions within the project. The expense refunds, as far as projects are concerned. So you have a project manager that needs to go on site and they've just booked accommodation for 5 nights. But when they get there, it transpires that they only need to be there for 2 nights. So they get a 3-night refund from the hotel. So this allows you to reimburse the corporate credit card with that refund, and also make sure you've got the correct entries against the project and in the GL to accommodate the refund as well. Next slide, please. Distribution requirements planning is what Bruce was talking about with MRP for inventory planning. So it's combining the manufacturing requirements with the inventory replenishment requirements into one place for planning of all of your inventory, whether you're manufacturing or whether you're just distributing. So the optimization of supply chain over and above just minimum maximum safety stock, which is the case now, gives you a lot more flexibility and control over management of your stock levels, so you're not overstocking, and better ability to achieve just-in-time inventory, making sure you can have the correct stock levels to match your customer demand. The middle one, another returns enhancement, whereby better search facilities available to be able to exactly track the item on the transaction line for what the customer is trying to return. So streamlining the search process, being able to find the lot or serial number and actually being able to accurately and quickly determine when this item was sold, what the terms and conditions are around its sale, and whether or not the return is approvable. And in the warehouse itself, rather than just sending all of your pickers around the warehouse in the standard way, you now have the ability to optimize the directions in which they go to make sure that they're minimizing the distance and the time taken to complete the pick. And the next one. Now, this first one is going to impact everybody on this call, because Momentum, as you all know, uses case management within the Acumatica CRM to manage our support department and our support provision to all of you. So what this one is doing is being able to raise to the surface and give better visibility and control to those customers and cases that actually need it, such as it's payday and I can't run payroll. That is number one critical thing that needs immediate attention. Or where we look like on this particular case, we're going to be in breach of our SLA commitments. Being able to float those to the surface and manage our support resource accordingly, so that the people that require immediate attention do actually get it. The approval enhancements is around sales quotes and sales orders. So having more conditional approval maps, so that if the order's over a certain amount, it goes to this person and goes to that person. Or if the discount's at this amount, it can go to the sales manager. If it's at above that amount, or the margin calculations, it needs to go to various other people within the organization. So it gives a lot more flexibility to set those up to make sure that you're actually selling profitably. And the next one. So the first one here, again, is around returns. So, and refunds. So you send your technician out on an appointment, they complete the job, they close the appointment and invoice for it. And then you get a call from the customer saying they're not happy with that. The job hasn't been completed properly. So this now allows you from within the service management documents to auto reverse that invoice and create the credit memo that goes with it. It allows you to reopen the appointment, to go and redo the job and rebill it correctly. So the benefit of this is that because it's all being done directly through the service documents, it's stopping those instances that might fall between the cracks in the process between the service management team and the finance team, because everybody's now working on the same page. And simplification of billing cycles applies to service contracts or service agreements, making sure that you're putting the appropriate billing cycles to the appropriate agreements for those customers, and making sure that they're adhered to and being billed in accordance with the cycle in a much more flexible and manageable way. And finally, workforce management has been floating around the MYOB Acumatica people area for a little while, and it's now getting to a point of maturity. And one of the key factors of this is having pre-built and pre-approved award calculations that you can download into your payroll environment or your workforce management environment, I should say, so that your employees then get paid accurately and correctly for the times that they work according to the fair modern awards. This means that any of the news headlines that nobody wants to be, where people are being accused of short paying staff, that's all automatically taken care of according to the times that people work, according to the awards that their pay is determined. And also there's payroll reporting enhancements. Some of the payroll reports have been a little inflexible, so there's more reports that are coming through to be able to do more sort of comparative reporting, more pay run review type reporting, being able to report against your government compliance payroll obligations as well. So again, better efficiency for the payroll team coming through as well. And that's it for me.
Thanks, Peter. So yeah, as you can see, as usual with MYOB Acumatica, a huge amount of new features and improvements coming. And I will say that those are just the highlights. If you go to our landing page for the 2024.1 release or access the release notes on the MYOB website, you'll see that every major release of Acumatica usually contains somewhere between 80 and 100 new features. It's amazing how many improvements and enhancements continue to go into the product, more than any other ERP that I know of. So it's the challenging part is actually curating them enough and condensing them and making them accessible to people so they can understand what additional functionality they can take advantage of, which is obviously what we try to do in some of these sessions. So I guess an update on EXO, as we've communicated to our EXO customers, over the last little while, EXO is more in maintenance mode than massive improvement mode, being an on-premise solution. But where applicable, obviously compliance is maintained in MYOB EXO, and subtle improvements are done throughout the application using in the normal release process. So PTRS is payment time reporting, which is something that only larger companies, I believe it's $100 million or more, might be 50, but there's a turnover threshold. So this wouldn't apply to everybody, but under the payment time reporting scheme, you can now enter an invoice, a date that you received an invoice, which may well be very different to the actual invoice date. So it is pretty common that out of the blue, a creditor or supplier sends you an invoice that's months old. Under the payment time reporting scheme, the company that receives it is required to report based on the date they received it, not necessarily the original date of the invoice. So that's now supported in the creditor invoice window. There is a file type ability to whitelist file types and magic numbers, which simply means that users will only be able to attach documents that meet the available file types. And that includes any documents that are inserted via the API. So JSON data, JSON is a terminology from an API perspective. A JSON payload is an API call. So that's now available in 2024.1 of EXO. From a security perspective, again, we've delved into that quite a lot with the cloud MYOB Acumatica product. Where needed, MYOB, of course, are making required changes to security for EXO Business because that's an on-premise, sitting on your server application that still requires security enhancements to meet compliance. So there's now the ability to encrypt the connection. So the connection involves the application connecting to the SQL database on your server. Previously, if that connection is not encrypted, it does contain a string of text that a very clever hacker could interpret. If it's encrypted, that's no longer possible. So recommend that connection is encrypted. And then a recap on some things that most of you already know. So any of our people on this session that are still using MYOB EXO Payroll, it was announced quite some time ago that EXO Payroll will be end of life from November next year. So that's still 12 months away. But given there is, a process involved to move from one payroll application to another, where I guess repeating the message that time is of the essence to make a decision about what payroll application you will move to and get the ball rolling for that. Many of our EXO payroll customers have already moved to the MYOB Acumatica payroll in anticipation that at some point they'll also move their ERP to MYOB Acumatica. But I guess just to recap on why, the EXO payroll is much older technology than the rest of EXO Business. The rest of EXO Business is Delphi application code and SQL Server, Microsoft SQL Server database. The EXO payroll runs on a platform called FoxPro. FoxPro is no longer supported by Microsoft. It is a difficult platform to incorporate modern security into, such as multi-factor authentication. So it does create a potential security risk. Most EXO customers are already investigating cloud options around payroll, and many of them have already moved, and we're working with customers, every day and every week to do that. The Acumatica payroll is a genuine replacement option for EXO. In fact, in many ways, it's a more enhanced payroll platform. EXO payroll that has some other modules, for example, like time and attendance and employee information, and there's options to replace those as well. An example of where Acumatica payroll really adds value is that EXO payroll doesn't really have an employee self-service feature, or if it did, it was called My Staff Info, which was an additional cost. Only a very small number of businesses ever used it. MYOB Acumatica payroll has employee self-service as an out-of-the-box feature at no additional cost, which means your employees can log in either on a mobile device or on their browser, update their personal details, including bank details, access their pay slips. But most importantly, and the best workflow around it, is to check their leave balances and make leave requests for personal, annual, long service leave, or any custom leave type that you have, and have that approved and then automatically flow into the payroll at the correct time to adjust their pay. So there's been an ongoing, incentive released by MYOB to encourage people running EXO payroll to take up MYOB Acumatica payroll. We've already had 24, I think it's a higher number than that, but quite a number of customers make the change from EXO payroll to Acumatica payroll. And there are some terms around that, so you can get up to 4 months free for the first 4 months with your Acumatica licenses, which means that implementation period you're not paying for. You get ongoing access to EXO for your historical data for 12 months at no license cost, so your annual license fee would be waived or credited. And there's also a 15-month price freeze. So whilst there's commonly CPI increases to all software, people who elect to sign up for MYOB Acumatica before the end of this month would have a 15-month price freeze. So small reminder, most people already know it, but we still have a number of EXO customers who need to make that decision fairly quickly. Okay, welcome back, everybody. Hopefully you've stretched your legs and grabbed a cuppa or a water. So the second half, we're running slightly ahead of time, so we're doing quite well this morning. The second half of our agenda, the first part in the next 10 minutes was to have a facilitated user group discussion with folks on the session that would like to participate. So one of the things that we are always keen to know is how our customers have been using the MYOB software they use, what they like about it, what they don't like, or what they would like to see improved, and also any success stories. So how do you feel that's benefited your business? So I'll invite anybody on the session. We'd love you to participate. So somebody will have to take the first step and say, "G'day," introduce yourself and your company, and we can have a quick chat. So can I have anybody who'd like to turn their camera on and unmute and say hello?
Hi Al, Chris from Pinata. I'm happy to have a chat if you want.
Hi Chris, how you going?
Good mate, how are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. There was a long pregnant pause there. I was about to move on, but thank you for stepping in.
That's all right, happy to. We've been on EXO for as long as I've been at Pinata Farms, which is 8 years. This time last year we cut over to Acumatica, and that wasn't without its challenges, as any changeover is, but it's been going well. What I really like about the sort of changeover platform is all the plugins that are available. One of your sessions a little while back, you introduced Trailed, and we use that, and that has significantly improved our time of processing creditor invoices, and also gives us a lovely audit trail from MYOB back through to trail for who approved what. So we're liking that. I've been having some speed issues, which I was going to raise, so that's obviously touched on earlier. So maybe that's the tiering, because we have a low number of users but a high number of transactions, so maybe we got lost with that. But there's also some other bits that was good in terms of the number of tenants that we probably don't need. And probably where I'm at the moment is I'm still probably in Luddite world in terms of actually getting information out. We're still sort of punting reports to a spreadsheet, still a bit more manual. So yeah, sort of year one was really sort of getting the hang of the software and making sure it did all the reporting that we needed, and business as usual. And yeah, but this next year I'd like to get involved in yeah, getting the stuff out in a more elegant, less hands-on manner.
Yes, and great summary, Chris, because it's probably somewhat common that journey, I guess. Do you mind just sort of telling the people on the call a little bit about Pinata Farms and what sort of business you do? Yeah,
we grow stuff, fruit, mainly pineapples, strawberries, raspberries, and mangoes. We've got many farm locations from Darwin down to Tasmania and across to WA. But really, I've only got 4 products at a high level, those 4 fruits that I mentioned. I've got 3 customers, Coles, Woolies and Aldi's. Now it's significantly more complicated than that in real life, but yeah, sort of that stuff, turnover around that 100 million mark, depending on what the season it is like. We deliver to every supermarket distribution centre every day of the year, apart from Good Friday and Christmas Day. And mango season runs across our Christmas New Year period, where we do about probably about 30% of our revenue in 7 weeks. So it really stretches the team. So automating invoices out to the big supermarkets, and yeah, having the bank feeds to reconcile the payments has been a real godsend.
Yes. So you're quite a significant business, Chris, and high volume, and you have transactions coming in from outside systems aside from Trailed as well, from my recollection, on the accounts receivable side.
Yes, that's absolutely right. Obviously, dealing in fresh food, you have to have a good traceability system. So we need to be able to work out which field it came from, because obviously we have to track where the conditions of that field and what products we may have applied in terms of fertilizers through that thing, and where the plants came from, just in case, God forbid, we've never had one, but there ever is a food safety recall, we have to go all the way back through. So yeah, our ERP is one specific for the fresh produce industry. Yep. And that's the one that creates sort of the sales. So in its initial form, so we're using not MYOB ERP in as wide as as many others would, because we're doing most of that sort of order fulfillment in our fresh produce one.
Yes, but I guess probably one of the things that has, well, I guess, led you to choosing it in the first place is, the API and ability to connect to other systems much more easily than you can really do in Exo, which only has a very limited or partial API.
Yeah, absolutely. Even getting the bank feeds working and credit card feeds working, and yeah, AP and AR. It's we've always sort of prided ourselves to be able to turn around our end of month in the first week, and have a meeting with the managers the week after. Since we've moved over and got all sort of more bells and whistles going, we can turn month end around in 2 days and have a meeting on day 4 now. So that's really helped my business users and understand the performance of their business units significantly quicker, and we can get onto things much faster than we would have done before. So
fantastic. And so what do you see that as the main benefit, or what other benefits do you think have arisen post your implementation?
We're rekeying a lot less stuff. So they're particularly impressed with Trailed and its OCR invoicing. Before, without these links, there was a lot of manual clerical keying time, so there were errors and there were bits and pieces. So it's just reduced clerical time and clerical effort and clerical errors.
Yes,
significantly. So we pride ourselves and try and get it right first time. So and that's where the speed has come.
And so doing more with less, and I guess means your people can spend more time being more analytical than being data entry people.
Absolutely, and that brings me to the point of the journey at the start, which was I'd like to get better now at relative to the inputs, which are fairly automated now. Our outputs are still a bit clunky, so that's where I'd like to see things very much sort of dropping a MYOB report into a spreadsheet and then doing lots of other things. That's where I see my next and where I need some help from your team.
Fantastic. We're interested to know which way you want to approach that. There are a number of options, either just with internal reporting tools that are already there or external reporting tools, one called Velixo, which is basically Excel on steroids, but directly connected to your database. And there are other more cloud-based BI options if you're looking for more graphical representations of data as well as reporting. So happy to have a chat about that. I guess final question, what improvements would you like to see or things that Acumatica might integrate with?
We went down the Employment Hero line for our payroll system, largely at the time because it was one of the only ones that offered the horticultural award as a built-in. Which was very handy. So I'm missing some of the payroll links. That's a bit clunky. I probably wouldn't mind investigating doing that. Had MYOB payroll had that facility at the time, I think it would have been an easy choice. I would have liked to have had one box for everything, but it wasn't so bad.
Okay, fantastic. Well, I really appreciate your participation, Chris, and good to hear you've been on a solid journey with MYOB Acumatica, and obviously more to do. Before we move on, would anybody else like to jump on and just give us an overview of their business and interaction so far with their MYOB software? All silent, lots of introverts. That's okay. We'll move on to our next agenda item. So I guess one thing that we're always conscious of doing is people are busy, have limited time to have training in specific areas, and we tend to do a lot of PowerPoints, as do MYOB, but we like to actually just get hands-on and show our customers some stuff that you can implement right away yourself. So I'm going to hand over to Pankaj. And Pankaj will be doing some tips and tricks and training that you could either jump into your test system and have a crack while he's doing it, or take away and practice later. So over to you, Pankaj.
Thank you, El, and welcome everybody to today's Customer Connect agenda. I hope you're having a good time so far. I'll share my screen and then we go through some tips and tricks that I prepared for today's session. I believe everyone can see my screen, but in case you want me to maximize the screen size or something, please do let me know. So in today's agenda, a few of the tips and tricks that I wanted to cover. The first one to start with is a little button here. You might know about this or you may have skipped it. But this button here is what we call as recently viewed or work history. A good tip here to go through this every day if you are working on something that you want to get yourself notified about. It is the last 500 transactions from different areas that you have done. So system remembers the last 500 transactions with all the, whether it's your finance, your projects, your production, your tasks, and all that thing. Like a work history that I usually call it. If I want to check what are the last few things that I have done since morning, so it's easily available here. I can easily scroll down and go to that transaction, particularly if I want to open it. Sometimes it happens that I am adding a bill or I'm adding an invoice or I'm adding something and then I have to jump into a meeting. So I saved it in half and then I have to catch up with that transactions when I'm back from the meeting. So I usually myself use this recently viewed so that I can easily go and then click on that saved transaction and work on it again. I can also make some favorite records in here, which means if I were to follow a few invoices that I want myself to remember, so I can easily highlight them by clicking on the star icons, as you know already, so that it would be added to my favorite record. So I followed up with the customer on that invoice, says we got things sold up, and then I would untick it to make it, undo the favorite thing. So a good thing for us to remember what we are doing last few, days or, up to 500 last transactions that I've been through. Another tip that I wanted to give is about this global search. Most of you already know about it, but for those who don't know, this is global search in MYOB Acumatica, where you can search anything which has been entered since day one. You can search for a profile, whether it's your customers, your suppliers, your stock item, your project, your production order number. You can also search it for a menu item, which means if you want to go to a particular screen, but you're not sure where the navigation of the screen is, or a report, you can easily use this one. You can search for help files. If you have a new joinee in the company and he would like to know, or he wants to do some self-study, he can use the help topics there and files as well. So for an example, I'm looking for a project. Being a project manager, I want to quickly have a looking at the project. And I know the project ID. I start here, and then system will look for this wording that I entered here as a contains type. So I have one screen that contains that ATT project, but I'm particularly looking for a project. So I can see here, this is my project that we are doing for Oscar Modular. And there is a performer invoice of that as well, with the status is closed. So the point is I can search for things like that. I can also search by the wording or description. So for an example, work or site work level 1. So it would just show me by the description and highlight the wording that I've mentioned above in the bold letters. So not only that, I can use this thing to search about things. If I'm in a finance department and I'm looking for a customer particularly, so I can just I start typing the name of the customers, and I can see that This is my customer profile, and all the opportunities or sales orders or invoices and all the things, all the projects I can see as a list in here. So a quick way to reach out to a data accesses that I want to do. Now, as I mentioned, if we have a new joinee in the company and he wants to know how to do things or want to do self-study, so he can say, enter an opportunity, NITY. Sorry, yeah, enter an opportunity, and he can go to help topics. You know, I'm new to the company and I wanted to read about how to do and all that thing. So I can go here, say enter an opportunity. I can easily go to the opportunities and read about it, how to enter an opportunity, what screen, what fields are available, and so on. I can easily come here and read about it and get myself some self-study to be done, what fields there are available and all that. And one more thing, the last one is files. Basically, if I attach a few files in the system and I want to know which transaction I attached it to back in the day, if I remember the file name, I can just start typing in, and if I go to the file section, it will just show me if that file is supplier bill or something, whatever it is, just show me where that file is attached to. Now, talking about this, another tip that usually I want users to, get used to is about, a quick help icon. What that means is if I'm on a screen and I want to know about that field, if I'm not sure about what field is that for and I want to read about that field, so we have this thing in the system already where I can easily hover the mouse and then it would just show me this little small question mark icon, and then I can click on it and easily view what is this promised on date is for on that form. This quick help is available on all the forms in the system. It's not that particular screen that it is on. It is available on almost all the forms. So if I want to see what is a supplier reference field here is for, I can click this one and it will just show me a quick read about what is the supplier reference form is for. Not only on the header level, if I'm at the detail level, if I wanted to see something here, attention, who is the attention, I can click this and it would just say that, why you need this field here or which area you can use this field for, something like that. So again, a quick help icon is really helpful for the people if they want to, get to know about a field on a particular form. Okay, so these are all about the tips. Let's move to a trick section. So the first trick that I wanted to talk about is generic inquiry formulas. So I'll take an example of project screen or project inquiry. Now here, this is the list of all my projects. I'll just make a little this one so that it gets more data. Now I wanted to add a column here that gives me what is the income minus expenses of this project. So like, some numbers to these projects. Normally project managers, what they do is they click on the projects, get into the project screen or profile and then see those numbers. But I want to do that. The easiest way to do this is, and you can do it yourself if you know the Excel formulas, it is quite easy to do. That is, I go here and I add a new line and I put a formula here that says that my income minus my expenses, then just show me that in a separate column for each project. Now, if you are not sure about the fields, you can always click on the fields button here and then start typing in what do you need. For an example, I want my curry income. If I start typing in, system helps me to filter all the fields available and give me the exact field. And then I can use those fields, in the formula below. Simple formula, I want to minus the expenses through my income and then show it as a difference, right? The other thing that you can do is if you have if and else conditions that you want to apply to your generic inquiries, which means if my condition is true, display me this value, otherwise the other value, or even more complex formulas. You can get trained, or you can read the files, help files to see about that. So I wanted another column in the inquiry that shows me if my income is less than my expenses, then show me as a under, otherwise show me as an over project. It's if I'm a project manager, I want to know how we are doing in terms of expenses and income. Are we under budget or are we over budget? Then I can do such a little formulas here to get the value done. If you want to explore more functions, you can do conversions here. You can use text functions here. You can do math function, date and time, and other functions. Depending which function you want to use in the formula, you have all available here. And these are all Excel related formulas. You don't have to be very technically sound in that. If you know Excel, you can easily do it. Now, if I activate these two columns and then save and view my projects inquiry now, you see that I have added those two columns here. So it would just show me the difference, which means for each project, are we going minus or are we going plus? And then it would show me if my expenses is higher or lower. It just show the value under and over for me for that one. You can also do color coding if you want to. So all under is on showing as red, or over as showing as red, or under as showing as green, depending how you want it. So this way you can use those formulas in generic inquiry to get more columns added to your inquiry list. And you can use any formula if you want to. If my expenses is this, if my income is this, based on the different types of fields that are available, you can use those formula to get the new data. Another trick that I thought I would share with you guys is something called, let's take a scenario that each time our project quote is accepted by the customer, before we convert that to a project, I want a team member, to do some preliminary task or preliminary checks. But I want system to do that on my behalf, so I don't have to do it every day. So what we did is we have created a business event. And what that business event does is each time my project quote is approved by the customer and we set it as accepted in the system, create a task for a team member like this. I've just done it. That each time that is done, create a task for my team member. It would be displayed on his task list that a new project has been approved from a client. Please do such and such things, so that we are generating a to-do list or a task list for that guy. So I have created a business event here. In my subscriber thing, I just added that whenever this business event triggers, create a task and just give a subject line of the task to what I have defined in the subscriber ID. Right, so I just wanted to give a summary of the task that the quote, my project quote number for this customer is approved. Please convert to project after preliminary checks, and then you can write about all the things that you want your person to do some checkings. And once this is activated and run, so this is how it works. So if I go to my project quote, I quickly just change one quote. So I'll just take an example of this one. So this is my quote at the moment. I submit it and it was approved by my manager, let's say. And then we have sent this to the customer, and then customer replied back that, yes, we are happy with it. Please proceed. We've won the project. My status get prepared. Everything is done. Before I click on convert to project for this one, if I go now to my task list, I believe the task has been created by the system using that business events that is triggered upon converting of that quote. So if you can see here, there is a task created by the system. The subject says my quote number for this supplier, for this customer is approved. Please convert to a project, and it has been seen under my task list. So a good trick, if you want to automate few tasks before any new project or any new production order happens in the system, or you plan or activate something before that, you can use this function. It is really good trick to do that. Another trick that I wanted to show you guys is dashboard parameters. This is really a good one. I will just try it now to go to a dashboard and show you this way. Assuming myself as a project manager, and I want to know the things going with the projects. I don't want to see everything. I want to filter it by projects on the dashboard. So at the moment, it shows me all the project related data, but I can easily add a parameter on the top like this, and I can easily filter by my project value. So if I click one of the project, system changes and show me the data related to that project only. So it is a quick thing for me to do. Otherwise, I would be going into multiple inquiries or screens or side panels to see that. But this is a good parameter that we need to add to a dashboard. Not only on the project dashboard, you can do this on the customer or supplier or your projects, production orders like that. So this is my customer view. So this is related information. I can easily select a customer from here, and then system will show me the data related to that customer in all the data dashboard widgets. I can change the customer, and then it changes the values. Right, so this is a good trick. How to do this is easily you need to just go to the dashboard properties and add a parameter there. That's my first step. If you were to test it in your test environment, go to that dashboard properties, under the parameters, add a parameter that I want to filter my whole dashboard widgets by that field, so customer ID here. The next one is in your widgets on the dashboard. All you need to do is just go to the design part, and then each widget that you have added, you need to add that filter there. So my account ID equals use parameter. You just need to tick this button, and there you go. You're happy now. The system will filter the data accordingly. So I think that's all else that I wanted to cover in today's session. Those 2-3 quick tips, and these 2-3 tricks for the businesses to automate or do something that saves time.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks, Pankaj. I particularly like that last one because I can think of a whole bunch of use case scenarios that customers could use. So you could be sitting down with a customer as a rep or as a sales manager, and without having to export a bunch of reports and things, you could actually just bring up a dashboard, filter it for that customer, and talk through, whether their sales with your business are trending higher or lower than usual, what their high or low selling items are, how many orders they do per month or week, whatever your dashboard looks like. And you could apply the same sort of logic to an internal meeting with project managers that are filtering on, projects of a particular type or for a particular branch or company, and drill through that. So it could be a project related or any kind of dashboard. I could think of all kinds of scenarios where that would work. So yeah, I think the first few that Pankaj went through quite simple, but often not entirely used. The recent items, global search, and quick help. Generic inquiries should be every customer's friend because it's often the easiest way to. It's basically an on-screen report is what a generic inquiry is. That's how I would describe it. But it can then be used in a dashboard graphically or converted to a pivot table, or then used as the basis for a printable report, all kinds of things. So the more you can learn about generic inquiries and practice, as Jean said earlier, rather than changing a standard one, particularly if it's a standard list, like a list of invoices or a list of sales orders, copy that, create a new one, and then go for your life. Much less likely to cause any problems. So I guess the next topic is to circle back a little bit, because we talk about upcoming new features, but they're easily forgotten until you receive them. But these features in the 2023 spring release, which in reality has been applied over a number of months throughout this year, in fact, so these are things that are all available to all of you now, because just about all of our customers have been upgraded to the major release for 2024, given that we're now in November. So I'll call out a few highlights, and I'm actually going to demonstrate them. I'll put myself to the test and test my own product knowledge of MYOB Acumatica. And I'm going to focus more on operational things rather than boring accounting things. So in the CRM module, there's a number of little improvements that do make a big difference to how well your sales team can function in the CRM module. So be able to create a customer on the fly while creating a sales order through the CRM module. A number of enhancements to the way CRM tasks and activities works, and that particularly is something that is potentially underutilized, can be a very effective way to make sure that sales opportunities are followed up, and there's a high level of activity going on in your sales team that also can be tracked. And the expansion of related entities, which I'll touch on as well. There's also a number of opportunity-related sales metrics or inquiry reports that I'll touch on very quickly. In projects and construction, improvements have been made to the cost projection screen. So if you're in a construction business, a cost projection is a very important part of what project managers do, usually at the end of each month, to do a cost projection on each project. To analyse, where the final costs are going to look like compared to the original budget, and that is used as part of the criteria to then make a WIP adjustment as well. So there's been improvements to that screen. A feature called Progress Worksheets, which is usually used by people in the field to record the amount of activity that's been done, so the square metres of tiles that have been laid, or how many square metres of paint has been rolled out, or basically quantity of an activity being done on a project. Also now available in the mobile app, so I'll show you that. Mixed sales order types, which basically allows a single transaction that might contain some items that the customer is going to return, as well as items that you're going to ship and sell and invoice. So previously that had to be separated into two discrete transactions, now it can be one. Manufacturing, a number of user interface improvements just to make it easier for production managers to access information relating to each production order and make changes to a scheduled or in-flight production order. A whole bunch of other improvements as well, and there is a landing page relating to that release, which is on our website. So I'll just bring across my browser. So under our support page of our website, we always create landing pages for each major release. And that landing page is pretty well organized. So you can go straight to the full release notes document, which is a very comprehensive document, but we do highlight the key features of each module, and you can drill down into more and more detail. So from a CRM perspective, a couple of things to highlight. So some new opportunity summary inquiries have been created for sales managers to be able to keep an eye on their pipeline and their forecast. So this one is an example of opportunity summary by close date, which shows you, based on the estimated close date of each opportunity, the weighted amount of that opportunity, which is basically the value multiplied the probability percentage through the different sales stages that an opportunity might go through. And adjacent to that, a side panel which shows the same information but by individual salesperson, and you can pick any month, and it would show you, the equivalent breakup for each salesperson. So there's a number of new opportunity summary inquiries that give better metrics to sales managers. From an individual opportunity perspective, so the ability to use enhancements to tasks. So tasks are a simple feature, but should be a very commonly used feature in MYOB Acumatica. A task can be associated and used in just about any screen, so they're not limited to CRM at all. They can be used everywhere, including accounts payable, finance, projects, you name it. It looks very similar to an Outlook task, but a task allows you to, create something that you need to do, future date it when it needs to be done by, prioritize it if needed, similar to how you might in Outlook, assign it to yourself or somebody else or to a team called a work group. It will automatically link itself to a related entity. So because I've created this within the opportunity screen, it's automatically linked to that specific opportunity. And I can then complete that task, and Acumatica is automatically tracking, has that been done? Is it overdue, etc. You can then go complete and follow up, and it would basically close the previous one, create a new one that you can future date for the next activity. You can go a step further with tasks and use task categories. So there is an option to create a predefined list of event and task categories. The ones that appear out of the box are just colours, which is similar to what you might see in Outlook, but I like to use more meaningful ones, which might be departmental or describe the activity they relate to, because then you can use that category to highlight the different types of tasks that you want to keep an eye on. And you can also use a filter to keep an eye on tasks that you've assigned to somebody else. So I've created this filter showing my delegated task. And so those are tasks that are not completed. So I've got status is not completed, cancel or release. It was created by me, but I'm not the owner. So that basically tells me they're tasks that haven't been done yet that I've assigned to somebody else, and I want to keep an eye on them whether they're done or not. So categories and filters in your task inquiry screen, and that can be added straight to a dashboard for the people that you're assigning the task to, as well as yourself. With related entities, and again, these are available in various screens throughout the application. So whether it's a task or an email or just about anything, the related entity field allows you to attach something in the system to just about anything else in the system. So it gives great sort of drillability for accessing information. So when you're creating a task or you're opening an existing email or various other transactions, you can then choose what do I want to relate it to or what do I want to link it to. So it can be an accounts payable document, an accounts receivable document, a customer, a contact, a case. You can see there's a very long list of about 30 to 40 different things. I'll link this one to a sales order. So then the next screen says pick which sales order you're linking it to, and you can filter by customer and link that. So that way, the person who was assigned that task or activity can then just click that link and it will open the related transaction that it relates to, so they can immediately access whatever information they might need to know to complete that task. The other thing I'll mention with opportunities is the use of relations. So a relations tab appears throughout MYOB Acumatica, not in every screen, but in many. And a relation, particularly with sales and opportunities, on the main screen, you've got which account or customer does my relation, what does my opportunity or potential sale relate to, and who's the main contact. But in a lot of circumstances, there may be multiple stakeholders involved, either as a part of this customer or separate group of stakeholders that you need to manage on an opportunity. So you can use the Relations tab to add as many related entities as you like. There's a pick list of what those are, but most commonly, I'll show you a couple of examples. It could be the referrer, and this list is customizable. Right? It could be the engineer or the architect if in a construction perspective, or it could just be the any external party. You then choose what the type is, and the type can be, again, most of those relations that we saw on the related entity screen. So in this case, I'm going to say it's a supplier. Then I can choose which supplier. And I can also choose what contact at that supplier. Very good. And if that contact, I'll pick one that's got an email address. If you then go add to CC, then anytime you create an email from this opportunity, all those additional contacts or related entities will be included on the email. So it's a pretty common scenario that comes up in older versions of Acumatica. It wasn't handled quite so elegantly, but these days it's very seamless. The other thing it does is some of these roles have a two-way relationship. So, for example, if I click on the contact Helen Black, and go to her relations tab, I can see the link back to that same opportunity. So from a CRM perspective and, across the whole application, relations create a lot of additional power for you to prosecute your opportunities. I'll just touch quickly, I'm just conscious of time, on cost projections and progress worksheets. So let's have a look at a cost projection. So these exist only in the construction edition of MYOB Acumatica. In previous versions, they were a little bit limited with the summary information at the top. So that's now been added. So each revision gives you budgeted and projected cost to complete, budgeted projected cost at completion, and cost variance. We now have, in addition to that, for the project that this cost projection relates to, budgeted revenue, actual and committed cost, cost to complete, cost at completion, projected gross profit, which is the main number that folks tend to be wanting to look at. And there are also two new calculated fields, which is a projected variance quantity and a projected variance cost, which automatically calculate based on the difference between the budgeted cost and quantity and the projected cost at completion quantity and cost. And I'll quickly go to my mobile app. and show you. So a progress worksheet, again, specific to the project module in construction, now available in the mobile app. A progress worksheet allows people on site to look at the work that they're needing to do whilst they're on site, usually that specific day, and record how much of it is done. So each task or budget item, effectively, has, if you look at the bottom of the screen, a total budgeted quantity. And for today, my completed quantity is currently 0. So I can update that to 35. Update that, and then in real time, that is updated in the project in MYOB Acumatica. Anybody back at the site office or a project manager will see that updated as soon as I've hit save on my mobile device. So it's a great way for making real-time information on activity done in the field accessible to project managers or people in the office. So I'll pause on the demo there because I'm conscious of time and we do want to finish up at our planned finish time of 12 o'clock. So next I'm introducing you to Danielle Boone, and she is the Partner Business Development Manager with ELMO. And Danielle's going to give you some information on the sorts of things that ELMO does for their customers, including quite a number of Momentum customers. So over to you, Danielle.
Thanks. Good job on the tools there, Al. And I'm conscious of time, and everyone's been here for a long time, so I'll do an abridged version so I can hand back to you for 1 minute at the end, because I think you'll probably want that. Thanks so much. So lots of people, when they hear ELMO, they think the little red guy from Sesame Street. We're not that ELMO. ELMO are an Australian software company, and we've been around since 2002, so 22 plus years old. And we started off as a learning management system. So the name ELMO comes from electronic learning modular objects. Thank goodness they changed the name to an abridged version, because it's a mouthful. Yeah, Australian-based. We're a SaaS business, and we are an end-to-end HR offering. So we support employees from hiring right through to retiring or firing, whatever it may be. And it's really all about automating the HR policies and processes in your business, helping you achieve compliance and freeing up your HR people to focus on more strategic activities. So where we see our customers buy ELMO is the top 5 modules along the screen: the recruitment, onboarding, core HR and analytics, learning and performance. So if you can move to the next slide. What I thought I'd do is just quickly touch on the capability in those modules. So we're flexible and we're modular. When you're often we find when businesses are moving their payroll, there's often requirements there for some HR and HR capability and reporting as well. Hence we have the relationship and work closely with Momentum. There's a lot of change going on in that space right now, with people having moved, getting ready to move. Our modules, so I'll focus first of all on core HR and analytics. It's all around centralizing and automating the people management within the business. So one of the great value adds in this module is employee self-service. So what that does, it allows employees of your business to go in and make any changes that they need to. If they need to change up their address or bank details or apply for leave, it empowers them to be able to do that themselves online, and also find policy information. So other capability within that module, we have a dynamic org chart. So a team manager can see their team, or at a higher level, you can see the business and the way that it's structured. We have some capability that's been released in the last 12 months called position management, and some other great functionality as well, including a document builder. And the ability, one of the great things about ELMO is the ability to build custom fields. So certain industries require a unique identifier. You can create the option to call that field out and then an input area for it as well. And the reason that adds so much value to businesses is because we've then got the analytics attached to it. So with our analytics module, we have custom reporting, but we also have, we have standard reporting, but custom reporting as well. So you can then build out those reports to be run and emailed to somebody on a daily basis, a weekly basis, Monday morning, 8 a.m. So it's sitting in your inbox, if that's what's important to the business. The other thing with the core HR and analytics is it enables visual dashboards. So each manager can have a dashboard so they can see the KPIs or people in their team, but also really great for board and management papers as well. So another really popular module that we have is recruitment. So this one's about finding the right talent at the right time and being able to recruit them into your business. So some of the capability in this module, we have requisitions. So that's great for approvals and governance within your business. So you can see which roles have been created and are ready for hire. There are career portals that can be built for your business and a candidate portal as well. And we have pre-built job board integrations. So once you have built a job ad, you can then push that out to the likes of Indeed, Seek, and LinkedIn, and then start pulling your candidate details through from that time. There's screening question capability in that module. So you can start filtering down and finding the right people. Just looking at the time, would love to talk about the other capability here, but I want to make sure that I hand over back to Al to wrap up. But look, what I would call out that we're a flexible, scalable solution. We start from about 50 employees upwards. And the reason that we call out that 50 employees number, it's really around, that's when we start to see greater complexity in businesses. So what I would say is if you're feeling some pains around HR right now, you've got manual process, or you would like to free up your HR people for more strategic work, reach out to Al and he will connect you with our team.
Thanks, Danielle. Great summary. And obviously the information on the slides is going to be available in our recording as well. I'll just add that Momentum works very closely with ELMO as a partner, and although ELMO has payroll, you can actually implement ELMO HR or recruitment, onboarding, HR, performance management, all of those things, and use MYOB Acumatica payroll. And Momentum has developed an ELMO connector. So what that does is, assuming you recruit and onboard a new hire in ELMO, it will onboard that employee into MYOB Acumatica payroll, pretty much ready to pay, but very little additional information to capture. And then so that the employee can use ELMO's employee self-service module, because it contains a lot of HR-related self-service features, not just leave, we have integrated the leave with ELMO's employee self-service. So we upload leave balances from Acumatica payroll at the end of each pay, and then employees can apply for leave through the ELMO employee self-service. That will then come down into Acumatica payroll as a leave request. And there's also pay slips that can be accessed via ELMO's employee self-service that are exported from Acumatica payroll. So we have a number of customers using ELMO in that scenario, but they also have a payroll option as well. It's up to each individual business what's best. And so, yeah, information's available about that and how that integration works. Just reach out to us if you are interested. Thanks, Danielle. So, yeah, just wrapping things up, just the last 1 or 2 minutes, everybody. Training is an ongoing topic of interest for many of our customers. You often have new people or you feel like you've gone to a certain level but want more. So for new people, there is an MYOB Academy, and there has been for quite some time. and it has self-paced learning around not every module, but particularly the finance module and a number of areas of sales and purchases and inventory. So any new people, I would encourage you to have them sign up to the MYOB Academy at the URL that you see there. In addition to that, we get asked all the time, and we deliver training, just every day. That's just a standard part of what we do. But obviously, Momentum's training can be much more personalised to your specific business process and specific modules, and even just areas of additional learning. So just reach out to us through our support team. Give us an idea of what training you would like to cover, how many people need to be involved, and we can sort of talk about whether that's a full day session on site or whether we can do a number of smaller online meetings. We're very flexible with how we do that. And last but not least, there's a special which has just been announced to us this morning. We've just managed to put this in a slide. So between now and the 15th of December, if you order additional licenses of MYOB Acumatica or MYOB EXO, there are discounts on offer. MYOB Acumatica, if you purchase between 1 and 4 new licenses, it's a 10% discount, goes up to 15 between 5 and 9, and a 22% discount for 10 or more. There are a couple of conditions around that. And similar for EXO, so 1 to 2 licenses, 10%, 3 to 4, 15, 20%, 5. And that can be combined, so it might be a job costing license and an EXO business license and a CRM license, for example. So that'll be coming out via an email pretty shortly as well. And that's it. So any questions, please feel free to fire away with your questions. We hope that the information we presented to you was of use. That's the main intention of these sessions, is to help impart knowledge and get you a return on your investment with your MYOB software and working with Momentum. So thanks everybody, and fire away if you have any questions. I'll stay online for a couple of minutes.